The biting cold of winter in Washington state was usual, but the atmosphere at the remote excavation site of Project Cascadia was one of unusual, electrifying tension. The site, located on a forested, hard-to-access plateau in the foothills of the Cascades, had been chosen by Dr. Silas Vance, a geologist and archaeologist from the University of Seattle, due to anomalies in river sediment analysis patterns. Vance's team was not looking for artifacts, but for a geological signature of a specific prehistoric event that had been dismissed by mainstream archaeology. Give it a like, subscribe, and share. Let's begin. Dr. Vance and his principal assistant, Dr. Maya Sharma, spent 3 years excavating along the river, finding the expected stratification: layers of volcanic ash from Mount Rainier, deposits from the last ice age, and scattered traces of human presence dating back 9,000 to 11,000 years, the period of the Clovis culture and its successor. However, at a depth of 6 meters, just beneath the layer marking the transition from the Pleistocene to the Holocene, a level that had been assumed to be geologically sterile of human presence, the team hit a layer of fine, uniform sediment that was not natural. It was compacted clay and pulverized quartz that had been intentionally deposited, acting as a protective seal against the geological forces of time. After patiently and precisely removing that 50-centimeter artificial layer, the team revealed something that made Dr. Vance feel the chill of history: a soil surface of fire or heat-hardened clay, arranged in a geometric pattern of 10 meters by 10 meters, perfectly level, upon which lay the remains of a complex structure. They were not the scattered pits and hearths of Paleo-Indian hunter-gatherers. It was a collapsed, subterranean chamber, the finding of a permanent, organized structure in Washington state that predated the Clovis culture by at least 6,000 years, according to initial depth and geology estimates, was, in the words of Dr. Sharma, the sacrilege of American archaeology. 1. The impossible dating and anomalous architecture. Project Cascadia's team spent 2 months on the forensic analysis of the sealed chamber before fully excavating it. Carbon dating, the breaking point. Samples of charred wood were extracted from the chamber's collapsed beams and sent to 3 independent laboratories in the United States and Canada: University of Arizona, Smithsonian Institution, and University of British Columbia. The results returned with devastating consistency. The average age of the wood was 17,800 years, plus or minus 300 years. This meant the structure was erected at a time when most of North America was covered by the Laurentide ice sheet and the Cordilleran ice sheet. The 17,000-year date refuted the dominant theory of the continent's peopling, which posits that humans arrived via the Beringia land bridge no more than 13,500 years ago, following the melting of the ice corridors. The implication was clear and radical. A complex civilization existed in the Pacific Northwest before America was thought to be inhabited, a civilization that had somehow survived the last ice age, or had entered the continent by an even older coastal route than previously theorized: the subterranean chamber and its function. The structure itself was a challenge to the logic of the era. It was not a simple cave or shelter. It was a stone and wood chamber designed with exceptional thermal precision. Insulated walls. The walls were constructed with local granite blocks, interleaved with a mixture of peat and clay for optimal insulation. The structure appeared to have been designed to maintain a stable internal temperature and withstand the weight of snow or ice from the glacial period. The cryptographic storage. In one corner of the chamber, protected under a slate slab, the team found 12 cylindrical fired clay vessels, sealed with an unknown resin and buried in fine sand. These vessels contained hundreds of plant seeds, wild wheat, primitive corn, varieties of beans and squash that were genetically unknown and non-native to the region. The design was that of an intentional seed bank or botanical ark. Dr. Vance and Dr. Sharma looked at each other with the same unspoken conclusion. This was not the work of primitive hunter-gatherers. This was a society with advanced knowledge of agriculture and botany, and an awareness of long-term conservation. 2. The MAMMOTH Hide CODEX and the Lost Philosophy. The most valuable and dangerous discovery for the historical narrative of the United States was not the date or the architecture, but an artifact found inside one of the sealed vessels: a rolled codex. The codex was made of a material that material scientists identified as mammoth hide, wool and skin from a woolly mammoth. a choice of material that only people living alongside these frozen giants could have made. The codex was meticulously rolled and tied with a perfectly preserved tendon thread. The content, written in a series of geometric symbols that resembled no known Native American petroglyph or Eurasian alphabet, was slowly deciphered by Dr. Sharma, who had expertise in ancient comparative linguistics. Give it a like, subscribe, and share. The language of the geometers. The language of the codex was an ideographic and symbolic script, which read like a survival manual and a cosmic philosophy. The principle of the Great Darkness. The codex described a catastrophic event they called the Great Darkness, which enveloped the Earth in cold and silence, a poetic description of the Ice Age. The civilization writing the codex, which they referred to simply as the Guardians, had not fled, but had prepared for the climatic event. They described the construction of rock shelters, like the chamber, and the storage of seeds of new life, the seed bank. The route and origin. The codex contained star maps and navigation guides that indicated an entry route to the American continent along the North Pacific coast, following the line of the kelp forests, a theory known as the Kelp Highway Hypothesis, but which was documented here as an accomplished fact. The civilization had dispersed from the coasts of what is now Alaska, or the Aleutian Islands. The philosophy of unity. The most subversive aspect was the codex's social philosophy. The Guardians did not believe in private land ownership or war over resources. Their society was based on unity with the Great Fabric, ecological systems theory, and responsibility to the 10 generations. Their primary objective was the preservation of knowledge and biodiversity, not conquest or accumulation. The finding was not just a change in date, it was a paradigm shift regarding the nature of the first Americans. Instead of wandering, technologically primitive hunter-gatherers living day to day, the evidence suggested a pre-Clovis society with long-term planning, sophisticated botanical knowledge, and a radical sustainability social philosophy. 3. The official reaction, fear, and suppression. The discovery of the chamber and the codex was instantly leaked to US academic circles, where it was met with a mixture of fanatic fervor and institutional denial. However, the reaction of the federal government was one of immediate alarm and total classification. The US Army established a 2-kilometer security perimeter around the site, with the cover story of a chemical spill. The Smithsonian Institution and the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, dispatched high-level specialist teams to take control of the artifacts. The conflict of the national narrative. The US government and the traditional archaeological establishment faced a narrative crisis for 3 main reasons. The peopling theory. The Beringia theory is the pillar of American archaeology. A 17,000-year-old pre-Clovis civilization destroys that timeline and questions the reliability of decades of government-funded research. Conflict with native tribes. The Guardian's Codex presented a direct legal and moral challenge to existing Native American tribes. If it was proven that a pre-Clovis culture with a non-tribal philosophy and unknown ancestry had inhabited the region first, this could further complicate ancestral land claims and existing tribal treaties under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, NAGPRA. The origin and identity of the Guardians became a political and legal flashpoint. The subversive social philosophy, the revelation that the first advanced civilization on US soil was based on radical communalism, ecological sustainability, and the absence of private property, directly clashed with the foundational ideology of capitalism, individual ownership, and American exceptionalism. This was not an archaeological problem, but a philosophical and economic one. The decision, driven by fear of political destabilization and cultural warfare, was the total suppression of the codex and the controlled modification of the dating information. 4. The manipulated revelation and the covered-up legacy. Dr. Vance and Dr. Sharma were forced to sign non-disclosure agreements, punishable by federal prison for any unauthorized information leak. The official version, the compromise. A tense compromise was reached between the scientists and the government. The official version, published 6 months later, was as follows. The date. The 17,800-year date was revised to no more than 14,500 years, a date just predating Clovis, and attributed to an early coastal settlement site, proving an early maritime migration route. This allowed the Beringia timeline to be modified without destroying it. The architecture. The stone chamber was catalogued as an anomalous seasonal shelter, built by highly adapted hunter-gatherers. The codex and seeds. The vessels with the seeds were catalogued as remnants of stored food. The MAMMOTH Hide CODEX was catalogued as undeciphered ceremonial material and moved to a high-security vault under the Smithsonian, far from any academic who might apply comparative linguistics. The Guardian's knowledge of radical philosophy and the true scale of the pre-Clovis civilization was hidden from the American people. Dr. Vance and Dr. Sharma continued their work at the site, now under constant surveillance, knowing that the rock beneath Washington state held a secret that was a condemnation of the country's historical narrative. The discovery of the Guardian's civilization not only rewrote the history of America, but presented an uncomfortable mirror to modern society. The first advanced civilization on its soil was an ecological and communal utopia that current society was unwilling to acknowledge or emulate. The true secret was that the genesis of the United States was not individualism and conquest, but unity and sustainability. While excavating, every artifact they unearthed revealed a profound knowledge about nature and coexistence. The Guardians had developed agricultural techniques that not only preserved the soil, but enriched it. Their constructions, made of organic materials, integrated perfectly with the environment, almost as if nature itself had been part of the design. Give it a like, subscribe, and share.